Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Another Parenting Perspective. This podcast talks about ways we can strengthen the parent child relationship through the process of parental evolution. I am Smriti Gopal, an educator, a conscious living coach, a conscious parenting coach, and a present moment awareness coach. I hope this podcast supports you as you go along parenting. This episode talks about how we can show up for our tweens and teens in ways that will nurture and continue to strengthen that parent child bond. The tween and the teen years are rightly referred to as the metamorphic years by Dr. Montessori. You may have experienced this metamorphosis in your own children. They almost seem unrecognizable. Most parents of teenagers say, "Where did my baby go?" Well, the baby is changing into a butterfly, and that's the way of life. The change is not really the problem. The problem is that we parents don't see this change coming. Teenage years are almost always spoken of as a dreadful time. When we understand this plane of development, we see that it is very energetic and exciting. The tweens and teens bring in a lot of creative energy within them. To see this as a creative rather than a dreadful time, let's understand what's going on in the lives of a tween or a teen. There are a lot of changes going on within the child in this plane of development, hence the name metamorphic years. Changes that are happening at different levels. It can be the physical, emotional, social, intellectual, or spiritual. Let's talk a little bit about each of these areas. Here's what's happening at the physical realm for our teens. Their bodies are growing and starting to look and feel different. They are yet to adapt to this new look and so are very uncomfortable. They're still figuring out their style of dressing. They may have breakouts on their face because of the hormones. They may not like the way they look. It is at this time that we have to make them feel that they are a magnificent expression of life and are beautiful just the way they are. It is important to not keep drawing attention to the pimples, their weight, their height, etc. This could lower their self esteem. Help them get comfortable in their skin. Let's see what's happening at the emotional level. So, apart from these hormones bringing up physical changes, they also cause a lot of emotional imbalance. There are times when teenagers want to be left alone and times they need a friend. The crucial point is to know the difference. They need to be loved, but in different ways. They want to be understood and they want to be respected as individuals. So, making deposits in their emotional bank account by listening and by being there for them when they need you will strengthen this parent child bond. Let's look what's happening at the social level. Peers have taken a very important place in their lives. They want to fit in. So, here's when it's important to have healthy discussions about things that are going on in their society. Talking to them in non judgmental ways will help you know what's happening in their social circle. The teenager should be empowered to have opinions and be able to stand up for themselves. This will help them make the right decisions in a social circle and not just do things to fit in. It is not helpful for the teenagers when we adults are constantly judging them and telling them what to do instead of understanding them and letting them make their decisions. At the intellectual level, teenagers have minds which are very active. So they have thoughts, opinions, and ideas. They do not want to be told what to do. So you might be wondering, what if they are not yet ready to make those very important decisions and may end up taking the wrong decisions? By now, they are used to making choices and are willing to choose from the alternatives that is there in front of them, provided they have been allowed to make choices and take decisions in different ways starting from when they are young. If choices are never provided early and they are told what to do all the time, then they reach this plane of development when they don't want to be told what to do and do not know how to make decisions. The way to address this is to empower them by giving them the opportunity to make choices when they are little so that they can learn the power of decision making and learn from the mistakes that they make. The mistakes that are made when they are very little could be less costlier than the ones that they could make when they are teenagers. But making mistakes is a part of the growing process. So I think being involved in their lives and having conversations, being interested and curious to a point where you're not suffocating the teenager, but giving them that space to be who they are, but also providing them with that feeling of I'm here for you if you need me. Teenagers love intellectual discussions about things that are happening around them. So, being curious and wanting to talk about it will give us a glimpse into what their thought process is. They just don't want to be lectured all the time. They want to get out of that child role and get into the adult role. That's what is happening at this stage when they are finding out who they truly are. Let's look at what's happening at the spiritual level. The teenage years is also the age when the questioning mind is questioning everything that is happening around them. They're trying to understand the way life works. God is a word that is yet to form a meaning in their heads. So, the best way to help this child develop spiritually is to be there and try to answer their questions without resistance. Our own spiritual paths can be a guiding light for them, but certainly is not necessarily the path that they would want to take. Pushing down rituals or religions in a controlling way is not going to help them develop their own spiritual locus. Let them seek and find out and clarify and experiment and find their own spiritual path. This spiritual path that they find will be there for them through good times and not so good times too. So, the bottom line is be there for the teenager. Ask them how you can help them and assure them that you are there for them whenever they need you. Help them see their strengths and provide opportunities for areas of improvement. Be open and follow the least resistant path. This does not mean you agree to everything they say or want to do. Discussions, collaboration, and understanding their point of view are all ways we can try to understand and guide our teenager. Choose wisely while setting sand boundaries and stone boundaries appropriately. When the teenager is given enough space to be who they are, they will value your opinion. So we need to be open and drop the barriers that we have to certain ideas or situations. If we come with preconceived notions and already made up decisions to a discussion with our teenager, we are not giving space for a discussion. The decision is already made in our heads. It is not sensible to also keep comparing your teenager's life to when you were a teenager. Talk, learn, ask questions, understand from an intention to understand, not from an intention to prove that we are right. And from this knowledge that you gather from all the talking, the learning, and the questions, you can parent from this place. Staying connected to our being and then parenting will make that role of a parent flow with ease, and what comes out of it will be just right for our teenager. Each teenager is custom made, so we can't generalize and box them. When we respect them and their privacy, we will see the transformation in the behavior towards us. Be there for your teenager throughout their metamorphic years, and you will see the energy, color, and light that they bring into our lives. There are many lessons I learned when my children were in this plane of development. It also was the beginning of the testing period for me. I think whatever plane we had a tough time while we were growing up is the plane that will challenge us in our own child's development. The world is also in a state of constant change. It is not surprising that the life situations our children experience in society is very different from what we experienced during our growing years. So it is natural to not know. The point is not to know everything. That's what I recognized through parenting two teenagers. That's not what the teen is expecting from us. All they're asking is a space where they can come and talk about anything that's on their mind. So, an open minded conversation is what they're looking for. And parents can be available for this open minded conversation only when we are looking deeply within, healing our traumas, and prepared to learn from our teenager. If we have not done the work, we go into this conversation in a fearful mood. We get stuck in the pain that it's bringing up in us and are not showing up in ways that our children want us to. We're preoccupied in explaining, defending, and trying to convince, and doing everything so that you don't feel this discomfort that you're feeling. I remember being so scared when my older daughter would approach me to talk about things that were on her mind at that moment. And this somehow was always in the night when we are ready to sleep. There is a reason for this. It is at this time that their mind is winding down and the child is looking to connect. The teenager is perplexed and is looking for answers for things they see going on in their world. Like I said earlier, these may not be things that we have even ever spoken about. So when our children bring up questions about sex, gender orientation, dating, etc., it can bring up a lot of unhealed trauma within the parent. Or it may bring up the fear of not knowing what to say, since maybe this has not been our experience. When we are not on the inward path, when these situations arise, we react. We give some snappy answer, we yell, we judge, or and we behave in ways that show our children that we are not ready to have this conversation and we are not the ones they can talk to. So in this way, we create a disconnection. This leaves the child with two choices. They can either bottle up and create coping mechanisms or seek these answers from other sources which may not give them accurate information. This is when my inner work gained momentum. The topics which my girls brought up that triggered the fear in me were exactly those topics which were not spoken about during our teen years. Learning more about the topics that came up in our parent child relationships helped me with my fears. However, the bigger thing to be worked on was the dismantling of the prescriptions that were offered to me by society and culture, which I had very readily made as a template for myself and now even for my children. Dismantling the beliefs, assumptions, and expectations, all which were gathered along the way of living life. So during these times, what helped me was being open to whatever was showing up in our present moment and embracing it fully rather than resisting it. Knowing that just because we parents didn't know or didn't experience these things in our lives does not mean our children should not even talk about it, let alone experience it. So, the desire to be connected with myself so that I can connect with my daughters is really the driving force behind me staying on this conscious path. So, having the willingness to learn is helping me with my connect with my own children. Among the many lessons I learned being a parent to two teenager girls, here are a few. Distinction between belonging and fitting in. This is very crucial for our teenagers to understand. The tweens are beginning to step on this journey, and our teens are way into the journey to discover who they are and what role they play in society. If a group does not accept our teens as they are ready to twist themselves into a pretzel till they are accepted. This is where my learning of this distinction began. If you notice, we instantly get into the judging and preachy mode. lecturing why they should not change for others, etc. What I found helpful was looking into ways that I am twisting myself into a pretzel in my own life. There are so many times we do this to fit in with our families, to fit in with our friends. Becoming aware of this will show us it's not easy. If it is so hard for us, you could only imagine how difficult it must be for our children who are still discovering themselves and who they are. Brene Brown, in her book, The Atlas of the Heart, says belonging is being accepted for you. Fitting in is being accepted for being like everyone else. Unconditional love is a necessity for true belonging. Accepting our children for who they are, reminding them of their strengths, and encouraging them to be themselves is crucial for this development. You may see that this is not possible for a parent unless they have found love, acceptance, and authenticity in themselves. Hence, the requirement of this work. When we role model belonging, our children will feel empowered to show up as their authentic self. So let's talk a little bit about the requirements that this feeling of belonging needs. The first one is acceptance. Eckhart's teachings can be very helpful to understand acceptance. For now, this is how my child is, and this is what I'm required to do. And I embrace them and do what's required willingly. The lack of resistance is acceptance. Our children are looking for acceptance. Constant comparison, criticism, and condemnation does not show that we accept this child just the way they are. On the contrary, we are sending a message that we are not happy with the child that is in front of us and we want them to be different. This is where the actual fitting in begins in the first place. So, looking deeply into ways that we are not accepting ourselves, the judgments we pass about ourselves, can open us up to the awareness of lack of acceptance. Remember, these lessons that are being offered to us through our children are all processes to encourage our growth. When you think you got it, a new lesson introduces itself. Especially when you're on the parenting journey, you're shown new lessons every moment in every plane of development. There's something to learn. That's why a willingness to continue to learn is a prerequisite of conscious parenting. The next requirement for belonging is authenticity. Authenticity is showing up just the way we are, the naked truth of who we are. This again evolves through time. As I began to accept myself just the way I am, I started to own my authenticity. Children are very authentic when they are born. Conditioning and this need to fit in, what makes them become something else. Getting out of the boxes and seeing things as they are is very important if we want our children to embrace authenticity. Feeling it in every cell of our body, and we can feel it in every cell of our body only and only when we look into that wrong notion or that illusion that is making us see that this child is something less than or some improvement is needed. So, where is that? What is that illusion that we are stuck in? Finding that out and investigating it is the way that we start accepting our children just the way they are and empowering them to show up completely powerful in their authenticity. The other very important aspect of belonging is love. Only when our cup is full we can give, and we all know this. And this is true for love too. The question, do I love myself, can set in a lot of discoveries. This is the inquiry that led me down the road where I saw on the way how harsh I was to myself by being a perfectionist. Failure, mistakes, etc. were not even a thing allowed for myself by myself, which clearly showed me that there was some work that needed to be done for me to love myself. Going down this path brought up, self doubt, never enough, and much more. All these are obstacles for self love. Clearing these obstacles will help us parents love ourselves, and only then can we love our children effortlessly and unconditionally. Until then, we are professing love but not practicing love. Self love and self acceptance are extremely important to belong, since belonging is presenting your authentic self and fitting in is presenting a twisted self. As long as we are fitting in and expecting our children to fit in, true belonging cannot appear. Our children are subject to a lot more than what we were subject to when we were teenagers. There are so many decisions these children need to make. There are so many no's they need to say on their way, on their journey. So, in order for them to feel this power to stand in their own truth and their authenticity and be able to say powerfully yes and no to the things that serve them, it is important that they feel this belonging. And for that, they need to be completely comfortable in their skin and accept themselves just the way they are. When we heal and when we show up for our teenagers in power, we are holding up a mirror through which they can see their own power and their own authenticity and live from that space of abundance. If you liked what you just heard, consider sharing this podcast with your friends. You can follow me at Smriti Gopal on Instagram and on YouTube, and on the Facebook page Formative Age or Equanimous Coaching. You can find out more about the work I do on formativeage.in or equanimouscoaching.com. Thank you for listening, and until we meet again, take that most needed pause to keep a check on the parental ego and stay present and alive to discoveries. Thank you and bye bye.